How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, and welcome to your 2020 year ahead horoscope for Scorpio, Sun, and Rising. Thank you guys so much for being here and liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys. In this video, we're going to be going over all of the major transits of 2020 by each quarter and how they'll be affecting you. And now, while there is a lot of astrology happening next year, we're going to be briefly going over the major events so you guys have a general idea of what's going to be going on for you guys this year. Now, if you would like a more in-depth and specific analysis of what's going to be happening for you for 2020, please be sure to check out my website where you guys can purchase a year ahead reading from me, where I'm going to be going over all of the specific transits and the big major events that are going to be affecting you specifically for your chart for 2020. And if you like this year ahead horoscope and you also like weekly horoscopes and monthly horoscopes, please be sure to check out my page and subscribe for all of the latest astrology info and updates. And also follow me on Twitter if you guys like to talk about astrology and engage with me, as well as a bunch of other astrologers. If you're not on astrology Twitter, get on there already. And if you'd like to support me and my work and get access to exclusive content and knowledge about astrology, be sure to check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/whitelightastrology. And now, with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the horoscope. So before we actually start 2020, we're going to be ending 2019 off with Jupiter entering Capricorn. Now, of course, Jupiter is the planet of good luck, fortune. Whatever he touches, it expands. Jupiter's looking to give you gifts. Jupiter is all about our beliefs, our sense of faith and spirituality. And it's kind of a weird thing as it moves into Capricorn, because here's the problem. Jupiter is in fall in Capricorn, meaning he doesn't have the availability to the resources that he needs to get the job that he's trying to do done. So the big thing with Jupiter in Capricorn is kind of trying about making the best out of the situation at hand, or making do with what you have, even if it's just a little bit. And I think that's going to play a big theme throughout this year, especially because Jupiter will be in Capricorn for the whole year. But Jupiter will be in your third house. So the third house rules a lot of different things. It rules communication, our writing style, our speaking style. Has a lot to do with our neighbors, our siblings, and things in our close proximity. The third house also has to do with learning and teaching and understanding. But a good way to look at the third house is that it's how you utilize yourself and your personality and what you have and really what you do with it. So as Jupiter goes into your third house, a lot of this year is going to look like making do with what you have and really squeezing all of the juice that you can out of what you do have. Jupiter in Capricorn means that there's not a lot, but that doesn't mean that you can't do something with it. It means that there's an opportunity to do something here with that energy. But we are starting 2020 off with the big Saturn-Pluto conjunction. Now, this is a really big deal and a bigger transit, so I would definitely recommend looking into this on your own time, because I don't have enough time to explain the intricate parts of it at this moment. But a good way to look at the Saturn-Pluto conjunction is, while Pluto's kind of been terrorizing everybody, there's been a lot of problems to be addressed and handled. Now it's time to actually put a stop to them. Saturn is all about rules, regulations, barriers, walls, limits, consolidation. It's about having authority, about having discipline, being mature about how you handle situations. And as Saturn conjoins Pluto, this is kind of like, putting the chokehold on a lot of the problems that can be manifesting. And with this being in your third house, again, where Jupiter is going to be, also I didn't get to mention that the third house also rules short distance travel. I just wanted to make sure I threw that in there. While you can be really trying to utilize what you do have, when Saturn conjoins Pluto, this is going to be a big time about taking responsibility and kind of getting a grip on, hey, where are you? What's going on in your environment? Where are you going? What are you learning? What are you doing, and what are you understanding? Then we have the very first Mercury retrograde of 2020, the first out of 3, and that's going to be happening in Pisces. Now, Mercury retrogrades are, of course, a time to review, a time to reflect, go over things, rethink things a little bit. And this is going to be in the sign of Mercury's detriment, which is Pisces, meaning Mercury doesn't work all that well there. So when it comes to communication, when it comes to mindset, when it comes to thinking about things, it can be kind of a struggle interpreting all of your ideas. Now, this Mercury retrograde is happening in your 5th house of love and romance, of children, of what you create. And as Mercury retrogrades during this area, if you have kids, you might have miscommunications and slip-ups with them. If you're an artist or a creative, this might be getting new ideas and a refreshed sense of what you want to do. While it is the 5th house, this is about love and romance. So this is going to be a time to really reflect on what are the things that you want and what are the things that you want to have more of. But then as we go into March is when we're going to have one of the bigger highlights this year is Saturn moving into Aquarius. Now, Saturn's been in Capricorn for the last few years, and as it moves into Aquarius, we get a really big change of theme. Now, of course, Saturn's all about rules and discipline and walls and consolidating. But the good news is that Saturn's going into his other home sign of Aquarius. So it gets to operate really well here. Saturn can be very constructive, helping you be disciplined, helping you be mature, and have long-term commitments that are going to help you create them into something else. But as Saturn enters Aquarius, it is now going into your 4th house. And the 4th house is all about family, home life, living situation, where you're centered, and your parents. And as Saturn goes through here, this is where you're going to be, given more obstacles and more challenges and possibly more responsibilities with that theme of your life. Now, the big thing with Aquarius energy is that it's about disconnecting or connecting within. It's all about networking and trying to share ideas. Now, as Saturn goes into Aquarius and goes into your 4th house, this can be a time of really connecting yourself more to your family, centering yourself more, getting more, committed and having more long-term type, or being centered in a more of a long-term place wherever it is that you're living. Or Saturn in Aquarius can be helping you disconnect from where you are and help you set firm boundaries to help you, with your family life or with your private life. And then we end the first quarter of 2020 with Jupiter conjoining Pluto. Now, like I said before, Jupiter in Capricorn is about making do with what we have. And as Jupiter conjoins Pluto, this is kind of like finding the ability and finding the intuition to kind of understand how you can utilize that. Because as Jupiter conjoins Pluto, it's going to be time to change our beliefs, change what we believe is going to work, change our system and our operation of our belief to better utilize it for ourselves for what we're doing, and especially for you, Scorpio rising, as this is going to be in your 3rd house of how you utilize yourself. Now, this is going to be something that we come back to, but as Jupiter does conjoin Pluto, this is going to be the time where you kind of realize, you only have this little bit, this little thing to make do with, and it is kind of an extreme scenario that you kind of have to use it with, but you're going to be able to get to the other side of this, and that's what we're going to be talking about more towards the end of this video, towards the end of this year. Now, starting the 2nd quarter of 2020, we're going to be having eclipse season begin, but this time with the nodes moving signs. The nodes are going to be moving into Gemini and Sagittarius, and now the North Node, where we're getting called to, where the direction that we're going in is, what we're hungry for, what we're wanting to consume, is going into Gemini, which is helping us focus on what information that we have, being more focused on receiving information, communicating, getting different ideas, and using what information we have with us. Now, the South Node being what we're letting go of, what we're straying away from, where we've been, where our past is, that's going to be in Sagittarius, where we're starting to drift away more and more from what our beliefs are, what our vision is, what we can create as expectations. And this is important because the Sagittarius is all about belief and faith, and Gemini is all about fact. And as the North Node moves into Gemini, we're going to be focusing more on the factual. Now, this is happening in your 8th and your 2nd house, so this does have to do more with understanding, being pulled more in the direction and being more clear of 8th house topics, which is death, inheritances, debt, other people's money, hidden things that you may not see that other people have, shared resources. And so as the North Node moves through here and starts to become more focused on this point, you are going to become more focused on that area while also releasing and kind of having to close up the area of your 2nd house, which is your money, your finances, and what you have and own. And then right after we have that first set of eclipses is when Venus is going to go retrograde in Gemini. Now, Venus is the planet of love and value, beauty, relationships. She wants you to indulge and connect to the things that you enjoy. And as she's going through Gemini, she's looking for more stimulation, looking for more social contacts, looking to understand and really enjoy what she's putting her mind into. And as Venus goes retrograde, this is when we have a value shift over what is stimulating us, what is getting us excited, what are we valuing. And as that's going on in your 8th house, you may have a more of a switch over or a value change in your shared resources. This may be a time where you kind of look over your debts and go, maybe this isn't bringing me too much joy. Maybe I need to tackle this and handle this before I can worry about my money. But then we get to the 2nd Mercury retrograde of 2020, and this one's going to be in Cancer. Now, the thing is with Mercury retrogrades, again, it's about rethinking, reviewing, going over things again. This is Mercury, the sign of communication, the sign of ideas. And as Mercury retrogrades in Cancer, the sign of nurturing, the sign of needs, the sign of trust, the sign of emotion, there's going to be this theme of saying what you need to say and getting really clear on what it is that you need to address. Now, this is happening in your 9th house, and the 9th house is all about your sense of belief, your sense of spirituality, higher education, publishing, far distance travel, foreign religions, and foreign countries. And as Mercury retrogrades through here, this is going to be a really good time to just reflect and rethink on what your needs are, on maybe what you need, on what your beliefs are, or maybe where you want to go, or where you want to travel to, or what you want to learn. But then as we get to the second part of 2019 into the third quarter is when we're going to have Saturn retrogress back into Capricorn. So those obligations, those responsibilities, and those limits and walls you might have been hitting with what your abilities are, with what you know how to do, those are going to be coming back for you to readdress before we go fully into Saturn being in Aquarius. But a few weeks after that, on July 25th, is when Mars is going to enter its shadow. Now this is really important. At this time, Mars is in Aries, and its home sign where it's feeling driven, it's feeling, energized, it's wanting to do stuff, it's wanting to conquer everything. But as it enters its shadow, it's going to start slowing down. And when you have Mars, this energizing planet, slowing down, you'll feel that energy. You'll start slowing down yourself. You'll start not having as much energy. And this is important because this is happening in your 6th house of your routine, your day-to-day habits, your health, your employment. So you might see yourself become really busy and then not necessarily have the energy to keep all of that up. But then right after that, 3 days later, is when we have Venus finally leave its shadow and start treading new territory in Gemini, going through your 8th house, where I think after we have this value shift, you really get to start to search more for what you understand and what you want to connect to. And with this being your 8th house of, shared resources, death, inheritances, debts, this is kind of handling things that you might not have been able to see and trying to understand them a little bit more so you have a better way to operate with those. But then from about August 4th through August 27th, as Mars is going through Aries, as it's starting to slow down, it is going to square Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. Now, this is going to be kind of an issue, and this is one of the bigger highlights this year, because as Mars is in Aries in your 6th house, where you're wanting to do more, achieve more, work more, and you're not really going to have that energy for it. And as Mars is squaring Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto in your 3rd house of your ability to do things, this is where you're going to have to address those problems of what you can do and how you utilize yourself the best way in order to increase or maximize the amount of potential you can get out of your schedule. And then, of course, we end the 3rd quarter with Mars actually stationing retrograde. So by the time you realize where the problems are and what you need to address, that's when Mars will start to move backwards, and that's where you'll start to address them. You'll start to go, hey, what can I do to better utilize my energy and get the most out of it without overworking myself, without overkilling myself, and where is my energy best utilized at? And then as we go into the 4th quarter of 2020, the big show, as I'll call it, we will still be having Mars retrograde, now again going to be squaring Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter. This is when you handle and address all of those little things. From first Saturn being the limitation, Pluto the source of the problem, and Jupiter, how do you make the best of the situation? But then right afterwards, on October 14th, is when we're going to have the 3rd and final Mercury retrograde this year in Scorpio. So as I'm recording these right now, we're about to have the Mercury retrograde in Scorpio of 2019. And a good way to understand of what the next Mercury retrograde in Scorpio is going to look like is reflect on what happened to you of November of 2019, especially for you Scorpios, because this is retrograding in your 1st house. And as Mercury retrogrades are a time to rethink and revisit, relearn, this is in the sign of Scorpio, where things are getting uncovered, truths are being revealed, and secrets are kind of coming out. However, this is in your 1st house, so this does have to do with you specifically, your personality, your sense of self. And this may be a time of rethinking your sense of self, or maybe you're the one that has or struggles with miscommunications with other people during this time. Then on November 12th is when we're going to have Jupiter conjoin Pluto for the 3rd and final time. And like we said before earlier in this video, how Jupiter and Capricorn really is about making the best of what you got on hand. As Jupiter conjoins Pluto, you're you're going to come to realize that if you made the best out of your situation, it is really going to change the way that you do things in a very drastic way. And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. It's just about you remaining faithful that you have that ability to do it, keeping that persistence, starting it, having the encouragement to continue going on. And as Jupiter conjoins Pluto, I think this is going to really revolutionize and completely change the way that you see yourself as able to do something. And then what's awesome is right after that, the next day is when we're going to have Mars stationed direct. So right after you have this realization and Mars gets to move direct and forward, this is when you get to start implementing new things into your schedule. Start doing more, having more of the energy to conquer everything that you have on your plate, which this is really exciting. Mind you, Mars is still going to be squaring Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter, so there's still some blocks in this area, but at least now you can be moving forward. And then, of course, we get into the end of the year where we have the eclipses in Sagittarius and Gemini, this time with the focus more on Sagittarius in your second house, kind of helping you reflect and think of what in your area of finances do you need to take care of so you can start moving towards that area of getting a better handle on, your money, on shared resources, on your debt to income ratio. That's kind of like the South Node in Gemini, or the South Node in Sagittarius thing is kind of like focusing on where your money's coming in and how you can handle that and not be so sporadic with it. So when it comes to debts and obligations, you can be clear and concise with them. And then, of course, we are ending the year with the big bang, the big finale with Jupiter and Saturn both moving into Aquarius and conjoining each other. Now, as Jupiter, the planet of luck and, expansion, good fortune, and faith, as it moves into Aquarius, Jupiter gets a lot of breathing room to connect itself to opportunities that can bring you the things that you want. Jupiter wants to be fair and diligent. Jupiter wants to have consistency. Jupiter wants to have some logic and understanding, and Jupiter's looking to connect with better ideas and disconnect from what doesn't work any longer, and be more connected with the things that are fun and exhilarating. Now, with Jupiter going into Aquarius and going into your fourth house, bringing more space for your living situation, having more opportunity to, have a better relationship, whether it's your family, your roommates, your parents. Jupiter's just expanding this area of your home and your living space and making it nice. But with that expansion of all these good things comes a big responsibility, and that's Saturn in Aquarius, like we talked about earlier. Where can you establish more firmer boundaries and connect yourself more on a mature, on an adult level of the things that are going to work for you, the things that are going to center yourself in. And as Jupiter and Saturn conjoin each other, that's kind of how we're going into 2021 with a breath of fresh air and basically new challenges, new goals, and new perspectives to work with. And that's what I got for you guys for 2020. So thank you guys so much for being here and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. And again, if you want a more specific and detailed analysis of what 2020 is going to look like to you, please reach out to me, book a reading with me. I'd love to go over your chart and everything that's going to be happening for you in 2020. And with that being said, thank you guys again so much, and I'll be seeing you next time.